They spoke of it first in whispers. Then it took the media by storm.
I have existed from the morning of the world, and I shall exist until the last star falls from the heavens. Although I have taken the form of Caius Caligula, I am a god.
Bob Guccione and Penthouse Films International present Caligula.
You amateur.
Amateur!
No treachery could equal his evil. No evil was more treacherous.
He's mad!
Caligula, the emperor who devoured Rome.
Growl! 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 I hate them!
Malcolm McDowell, Teresa Ann Savoy, Helen Mirren, Peter O'Toole, John Gielgud. No rumor can match the reality. Caligula, rated R.
I am from beyond. Listen, and all you desire will be yours. Welcome to Spider-Dan and the Secret Doors. Prepare for Prattle.
Well, Danny boy, them plates of alcohol and from burn to burn, went down the mountainside. That summer's gone, when all the roses are falling. Dead you must go, this you must go, but I must
Welcome to
go.
Prattle World. I am your host, the ever-amazing, ever-spectacular Spider-Dan. And in this podcast, I spotlight entertainment's best-kept secrets that a mainstream audience may find boring. And welcome to the very first edition of Danny B Movies, where I introduce a guest and or myself to a cult film. Now, the name for this new format comes from my close primary school, high school friends when I'd attempt to introduce them to a film. So this is their shorthand for a film being weird, trash, or cult. And I could only introduce this format with another Danny B. And it is, of course, my good friend and yours. It's Mr. Dan Burgess.
Hello, sir. How are we?
I'm very good. How are you?
Well, I was all right until you made me watch this film. Yeah, great.
Well, I will say this. I've just had my COVID vaccine yesterday, so I'm a little bit away. You know, I'm a little bit funny. So if this particular podcast isn't up to snuff, you know it's because I'm a little bit I'm turning into a zombie or an ape or whatever people think there's a microchip in me. Whatever people think the vaccine will do, I've got it. Whatever any of those theories are.
No, but we're doing this over the internet, and we've both been vaccinated, and the 5G signal we're getting is amazing.
This is a quality signal. Yeah, this is unusual. Probably because we're doing it right in the middle of the day, where I hope everybody else is working. Fingers crossed. But we are here to talk Caligula, the controversial film, which is Caligula. Now, I'm going to take you back quite a few years now when I was a wee nipper, a teenager, and I was watching Christina Aguilera's Dirty music video.
Ooh.
My grandmother walked in, she saw the video, and she said, "What is this? The Last Days of Rome?" And I said to myself while watching this, I went, she clearly never saw this film. My God, if she thought Christina Aguilera's music video was The Last Days of Rome, fuck me. Wow.
If she made the mistake of thinking I Claudius from the BBC was on, oh, I'll watch this.
Yeah, that's definitely not this film. I think before we get into it, we need to talk about the long history of production for this film.
And boy, has it got a history.
My God, yeah. Prior to the creation of the film Caligula, Penthouse, if you don't know what Penthouse is, which
I have no idea what
I'm
Penthouse
sure
is.
What is Penthouse? Who is Penthouse? So they were a big pornography publisher. So the magazines and stuff, much like a Playboy, but I think they were a bit more explicit than Playboy was. And they would often actually help fund big feature films, such as Chinatown and The Longest Yard.
Yeah, I was really surprised at I hadn't realised that before. Looked up what had went on, and like to see that they'd funded films like that, I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's not something. I mean, this wasn't their first foray into filmmaking, so to speak. I mean, they made adult films and various other stuff. But Bob Guccione, as I hope how you pronounce it, he wanted to make a pornographic epic. Somehow. So
just a pornographic. Now we'll just call it that. We'll change it.
Pornographic.
It's all in one. Portmanteau name. Pornographic. We're gonna make a pornographic.
I imagine he's got like a massive cigar and he's like, "We're gonna make a pornographic. That's what we're gonna do. Lots of genitals and everything. You name it, we're gonna have everything in it." And we will get to that. Don't you worry. We will get to that. But he hired Gore Vidal of Gore Vidal fame, to write the screenplay.
Gore Vidal is a name you know without knowing actually what they ever did.
Yeah, because I know that name, but I don't know what he did. Is he a politician? Is he a writer? Is he a novelist? He's just a famous person. I'm sure people are probably shouting at the recording device, the podcast playing device, like, oh, I know what he does and he did this, but I'll be honest, I've not looked into it and I've not dedicated my time to Gore Vidal because it's quite a small part of this particular story. But he was hired for $200,000 dollary dues to write the script, and it was called Gore Vidal's Caligula. So he even had his big name on it. Very proud of it, he was. So the main theme of his script was that power corrupts absolutely and would have featured Caligula's gradual descent into madness and evil. And this is reflected in the opening quote of the film: "What shall it profit a man if he should gain the whole world and lose his own soul?" And that was his idea. His screenplay also had a strong focus on homosexuality, leading to the producer, Guccione, to demand rewrites and tone down the homosexual content for wider appeal.
Yeah, it only had one straight sex scene in it.
That's
apparently,
right.
The original. And that was between the brother and sister, Caligula and Drusilla, which says it all, really.
I mean,
very strange.
It's very odd, but that was his script, and it's not. It's not untrue. He did have male lovers and, what have you, and does things to men in this film that, again, we will talk about.
I'm just wincing at the thought.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. At least he lubed up a little bit, at the very least. So yeah. Carrying on. So Guccione tried to hire erotic filmmaker Tinto Brass, again, very famous for his erotic films in Italy and various other European countries. But he said he would only do it if he could rewrite the script, which he felt was basically garbage. Again, this led to Gore Vidal having his name removed from the script because him and Malcolm Vidal actually rewrote some of the script for the shooting. So Gore Vidal had his name removed, and then Tinto Brass refused to film the explicit sex stuff, the unsimulated sex that Bob Guccione required because it's Penthouse, end of the day. So this had Tinto Brass kicked out of the editing room. So the final cut was by Bob Guccione. And again, Tinto Brass had his name removed from the film as well. And then all the actors as well totally disowned the film after its release. And there's a lot of illegal issues that went on, a lot of suing from people involved in the film, from people outside of the film, religious groups and, people against porn and various other kind of all this other sort of stuff going on, but I don't really want to get into that. But that's the basic plot story of the behind the scenes kind of making of it up until its release. But let's talk about the film, Dan. So why don't you tell me, if you can, maybe try and sum up somewhat of the plot of Caligula. It's a little mixed. I mean, the editing of the film is pretty mixed up anyway. So
yeah, well, the editing was obviously the film's been chopped about so much. I think there's about 15 different versions of it anyway. The edit obviously was like the very beginning of it in the woods was in the middle of the film, and that was put at the beginning. So but it's that mad a film anyway. You don't really, the way it's edited, you don't know where it's supposed to be going anyway.
There's a couple of scenes where he's got a beard and he's in a different location because he goes to see his grandfather Tiberius, played by Peter O'Toole, and he's got a beard, and then 2 minutes
his
later
beard just grows and then it's gone. Yeah,
and then it comes back. Yeah.
So it's essentially the story based on Suetonius's biography of the 12 Caesars, and of which he is one, obviously. As mad as the film is, it is based on a historical document of what really went on in the Senate of Rome and his rise to power, his obvious... I think Tiberius was syphilitic. He was mad, all scabby and dying in the film. So I think our friend Caligula had the same symptoms because he was literally going mad. And this is essentially... It's not even his descent into madness. He starts mad and just gets a little bit more insane as the story goes on. And it's about showing how he changed the Senate into a bordello. He put his horse into the Senate. It's just about debauchery, debasement, and just pure filth all the way through it, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
But it's the dark tones of how, as you said before, absolute power corrupts absolutely. All the way through it is, you see the powerful who are already in power are all corrupt and mad. And he wants that. The beginning monologue he does over the bleeding eye coin thing at the beginning of the film, it's all very stark. And that beginning monologue ends with him basically saying he is God, or he is a god. And that's what he believes himself to be, because he's one of the Claudius thingy. What is it?
Well, he says at the start that all the Caesars before him were gods, and so he believes he's a direct descendant of those gods. And I am Rome. This is Rome. I am Rome. I'll always be here. I am Caligula. All that sort of stuff.
I didn't quite make out in the film because of all the giant penises and things. But apparently in like real life, he had a walkway from his house to the temple, so he could be close to his other gods, basically.
Yeah, I think I was watching I think it was called the Infographic Show or something on YouTube, and it kind of gives you, and he says that he would often communicate with the gods and talk to Hercules and various other people, and it was like, because that's what he believed. That was his lineage. But yeah, it's a fascinating film, just purely because of its history, but also it made a lot of money. Like, it made serious amounts of money, and almost entirely purely because of the pornographic stuff. And I think
that's the funny thing about it, isn't it? It's basically, it'd be a better film without the porn, and it's not particular. I mean, the funny thing about the pornographic elements to it is, I was watching it thinking, these people look like they've never had sex in their lives. Do you know what I mean? They just they were fumbling around and tongues riding all over their own faces and things. It's like, what's going on here?
It's like, what is this penis I have in my hand? How do I work this? It's like holding it like a joystick.
Yeah, there is a whole lot of penis in this film. But the thing about the film is surprising is the music by Bruno Nicolai, or as Paul Clementi, as he's credited in the film, is phenomenal. It's it's got the lovely bits of Spartacus and Romeo and Juliet ballet mixed into it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
like the song, there's the classical music that you'll hear and go, oh, I know that song. But obviously he's put it in the midst of a medley of other songs. At the beginning, it's do 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 do. You know what I mean? I mean, a beautiful singing voice I've got, and it's but it's him and his sister frolicking naked in the woods. It's it's very, very strange, but it's it's a beautiful looking film. It's got some. I mean, one of the sets in it was the biggest set built at the time. It's 175-foot long ship or something.
Yeah, the orgy boat, as I like to call it.
The orgy boat, yeah. I think that's what it's called, isn't it? The love boat.
Love boat.
But it reminds me a lot, set-wise and acting-wise as well, I suppose, of Flash Gordon. And, the costume design and everything is that kind of thing. I mean, there's a few Princess Leia armoured bikini moments in it as well that I noticed. But I thought, I wonder if that's where they got the idea for Jabba's palace.
Maybe. I read actually that Leonardo DiCaprio was inspired by the performance in Caligula by Malcolm McDowell for his Wolf of Wall Street character.
Right.
So that was a big inspiration, which, I can kind of see, because that's a similar kind of, the excess of, leading to madness and stuff.
And that is the other thing about the film, is the cast is like, it's the real deal. Like, it's not, you've got Peter O'Toole, you've got Sir John Gielgud.
Well, I think it was either Peter O'Toole or Malcolm McDowell said on set when he turned up, they were like, "All right there, Johnny, what are you doing on the set of a porno?"
Yeah. Well, that was it at the end. Like, apparently, Peter O'Toole had given up drinking before he went on set, but Tinto Brass says that he seemed to be on something all the way through it. But he was playing a syphilitic lunatic, so maybe that was just him getting a card. Malcolm McDowell and him were like on set, was dead serious about it, and Helen Mirren and John Gielgud were like, "I'm just getting on with this film, getting it over and done with, getting the money, getting out of here."
I mean, it's fascinating. It's a truly fascinating film. Like, it mixes this kind of historical epic with this almost Shakespearean style, classically trained actors, with pornographic material, explicit pornographic material. Yeah,
it's really bizarre. Like, you're seeing Helen Mirren, Dame Helen Mirren, walking along with Malcolm McDowell, and in the background there's just a woman playing with herself and a fella getting a blowjob. And you're like, okay, I can see that. That's bizarre.
Yeah, it's just, it's almost like it's like, I was never bored. I was saying this off air. I was never bored. You and I watched the 150 plus minute version, the explicit, unrated version of this film, which is only one of several cuts. There's apparently there's a PG cut somewhere. I can't even imagine what that is like.
It's 4 minutes long.
But even to this day, in 2021, they are still Penthouse and various other people are still in the process of completing two separate cuts. There is the Tinto Brass cut, and there also is going to be a Gore Vidal cut, which is apparently close to what he imagined. But I kind of don't see how the Gore Vidal one would work, because they kind of basically threw out his script to a degree. Yeah. They adapted from it. So the shooting script was really the kind of Tinto Brass version, but I might watch it if they finally kind of release any of those. Unless
it's a 4.5 hour, like the Snyder cut of Caligula.
Oh God!
Like, no, I can't take 4 hours of that.
I mean, this is arguably this is the Snyder cut of its day. Release the unrated cut. We want to see all this fellatio and stuff. Show us that.
We want to see penises. Yeah. We don't get enough phalluses in cinema. We need more.
Hashtag. But there is a really nice documentary on YouTube at the moment called Mission Caligula, and it's about the young guy trying to. He's probably not that young, but it's about him putting together.
He was when he started.
Yeah, now he's like, now he looks syphilitic. He looks like Peter O'Toole.
He started 6 months ago. He's watched it that many times.
But he did it at uni as this big kind of folder of how you would piece by piece, because there's moments in this film which are just like, I mean, it's mad already. It's a mad film already, but there's bits where it's just like, clearly something's been cut out. Like, there's a moment where all of a sudden, like, they're having the orgy, and all of a sudden they cut to Caligula just shouting, "Crawl, crawl, crawl," and you're like, where the fuck did that come from? But apparently there's a scene where he's getting people to do stuff. So he's like, hop on one leg, do this, run, jump up and down, and then the final thing is crawl, crawl, crawl. I hate you. I hate all of you. I was like, what? Why is he just shouting crawl, crawl, crawl? There's no context for him shouting crawl, crawl, crawl. And this is apparently, again, Guccione cutting out a lot of the satire, because Tinto Brass wanted to have more of his version, and Malcolm McDowell's version was more of Caligula was always evil. He was born evil. He's a monster. He's a born monster, but he gets more elaborate, more over the top, more outlandish, and more mental as he goes on. Like, it just kind of escalates. And that was his version. There was a lot of political satire in there, a lot of comedy. But Guccione apparently cut a lot of that out because he wasn't interested in that. And again, was just shoved in a lot of penis, like we've discussed.
A lot of TNA.
I mean, it's more than TNA. You've got, you
name it.
You name it. It's in it. We have. There's an intersex person getting a blowjob. You've got little people performing sexual acts as well. You've got a gay blowjob, a man on a man blowjob a couple of times. Like you name the sexual act, it was probably
Yes.
You've got, just regular
cunnilingus for days.
Yeah, a lot of cunnilingus, a lot of blowjobs. Jizzing penises. There's a lot of jizz there at that point.
Foamy jizz.
Yeah, all that sort of stuff.
Foamy jizz in the morning. I watched this first thing in the morning. It wasn't good.
It's probably not,
right off me cornflakes.
You're like. No, fair enough. It's not. Yeah, if you're uncomfortable with explicit nudity.
The bizarre thing about it is it's not even like it's kind of film like a teenager would want to get hold of because it's like, oh, I've heard about this Caligula.
Yeah.
But none of it's sexy.
No.
There's none of it that makes you go, ooh, you know what? It's all like a bit, oh my God.
The only bit where I was like, the only bit that I thought was a little bit sexy was like, between maybe Malcolm McDowell and and Helen Mirren, because I thought they had there was chemistry there, and that was a little bit sexy, but even then it's not something where I'm like, ooh, yeah, it's not.
Yeah, but the main part of the film, the main cast members bits are better than any of the interlaced porn bits.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The porn is shoved in there, literally,
so to speak.
Literally and figuratively shoved in there just as the plot gets interesting, or just as you're getting. It's almost like a distraction. It's almost like every 5 minutes we've got to have a bit of porn, or people are going to get bored, or something. Yeah. It's kind of like like a slasher film where it's like, we've got to have a kill every 10 minutes. We have to have another kill or something. It's almost like that. It's not necessarily needed, and kind of. Yeah, but there's I think there's some good acting in here. I think there's some nice scenes, like when when Malcolm McDowell, when Caligula's sister Drusilla dies, and he's having that moment where he just can't.
Really, that's really good.
I thought that was really good. And there's a scene where Malcolm McDowell has like a nervous breakdown in the storm and starts dancing. He starts quoting Tiberius and starts doing the dance he did for Tiberius. By the way, the dancing from the main actors in this is something to behold. It's a lot of rigid
like prance.
Yeah,
it's almost like the horse movement, isn't it? With the the leg up, leg down, leg up, leg down.
Arm up, arm left. Bend the arm in, bring the arm down. Yeah, even Helen Mirren's has a dance when she's pregnant. It's
spoiler.
Strange. Yeah, spoiler. Yeah, spoiler for this hundreds and hundreds of years old story, historical story.
Well, it's like that, when the baby's born and it's a girl, and he says, "No, it's not. It's my son." it's like okay.
They're all like, yep.
Yes, okay. Don't say anything.
I tell you what I also liked as well. I like the scene where Tiberius has been murdered. Caligula is going to assume the role as Caesar. And he starts kind of giving a speech, and he's a little shy about it. And his sister's like, "No, you are Caesar. You are Lord of the world." He's like, "Lord of the world. I like that dream." And then he still fumbles in his speech, and people are like, "Ha ha ha ha!" And he's like, "Gold coins for everybody." And they're like, "Yes, we love you, Caesar."
He knew what he was doing.
Yeah, I think there is some genuine good stuff in here. It's just. I wouldn't say it's a bad film. I wouldn't go so far as saying it was a bad film. I just think I think the editing process has kind of ruined the original vision. And I think...
Yeah, I think it's probably... I'd go so far as to say it's actually quite a good film.
Yeah.
It's historically kind of accurate. It shows you the actual mania of the entire Senate to begin, all the way through it. And how people are always backstabbing each other, and quite literally in some places, and all vying for power and all paranoid about who's after them, and then obviously he just gets to the point where he goes, anyone who says anything at all he doesn't like, or even if he believes they are thinking anything about him, he just says, "Oh, it's treason."
Yeah,
it's treason.
It does talk about
someone.
Go on.
He smells someone's breath at a party and goes, "Have you taken an antidote? Did you think I was going to poison you? Right, treason." Get rid of him.
I love the bit where he's like, he decides all of a sudden that all the senators need to, he just decides that you're not beds and all your wives are whores, so let's make them whores.
Yeah. And he just turns it into a big bordello, doesn't he? A brothel.
But then he goes up and he's like,
I've got coins.
He's like, he goes up and he sees his one wife and he's like, she's got hairy nipples. Nope, not for me.
Yeah. And he goes up to her husband and says, "Your wife's bringing the entire place down."
But I was like, in the other orgy scenes, there's people with like there's a scene with someone with like extra hands and birth defects and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and
one with three faces,
and there's a guy with like an arse for a stomach. This is a weird film. This is a fucking weird.
It's very odd.
But like, I love that he was like, I don't mind a guy with an arse for a stomach, but the hairy nipples, absolutely not.
Yeah,
can't have that.
And then he says, it's 5 gold coins for 20 minutes. And they're all senators' wives, And then he looks at Helen Mirren and goes, "I'll have to think of a special price for you," because that's his missus. Like, he's like, "Oh my god!"
I mean,
one of my favorite scenes is John Gielgud's in it basically just cut his wrists. The real what's his name, Nerva. In reality, he starved himself to death. So, but I think before this story's set anyway. But in this, he cuts his wrists and he's in this pool of blood. And obviously, Caligula's like hell bent on finding out what heaven is, kind of thing. Do you see it? Is it Isis?
Isis, yeah.
I said, "Can you see her? Can you see any?" And he's like, "No, I'm just nice and warm, going to sleep." And he's like, "No." So he ends up drowning. I'm like, but the best line in it, Peter O'Toole saying to him, "You can't leave me, you can't leave me." He goes, "I've lived too long, Tiberius, and I hate my life." And I just thought, is this written in 2021? Just like, that's pretty much how I feel right this minute. Lockdown's got to be.
Yeah. I love the kind of there's a proper slapstick moment as well. So bizarre, like tonally, I think this film is a little disjointed again, down to the editing process purely, probably. This bit where he's just trying to pull off Tiberius's Caesar ring, like Malcolm McDowell as Caligula is trying to pull it off, and it's just like it's almost like a Buster Keaton style, like he keeps falling over trying to pull it off, and Tiberius doesn't even know, and then only after he puts it on does he go, "Give me my ring,"
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I think that's an old school. It's one of those moments. "Tell my family that I," and then they die. So he takes the ring off, and then he comes back to life for a couple of seconds. "Give me my ring.
I want my ring back. I'm still alive.
Give me my ring."
It's almost like that Austin Powers where it's like, "I'm alive, but I'm badly burnt."
Bring out your dead.
Helen Mirren called this film, which I think is probably quite a good description of it, as an irresistible mix of art and genitals.
Yes, I would completely agree with Dame Helen Mirren.
Dame Helen Mirren, like she knows the stuff.
And I have to say, it might be a bit rude of me to say so, but by God, she was a fine-looking woman when she was younger. I can tell you.
Beautiful lady, and well cast, I think, in this particular film.
Yes,
I love that he goes, because he's like he's basically in love with his sister. He loves his sister.
Yeah, his sister is his love.
Love of his life is his sister, and he's like, "We're gonna get married," and she's like, "No, we can't get married because the rules and this and that, and we wouldn't have it, and politically it would be bad." Da 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 da.
We're not Egyptians.
We're not Egyptians. He's like, "Well, let's just piss off to Egypt then and get married." Like that's his plan. But I was like, okay, sure. But I think she's the only kind of redeeming feature for him, because like I think she's his guardian angel, basically. She looks after him, makes sure he's at least trying to do somewhat of the right thing. But eventually even his kind of his desires, go far beyond, her ability to kind of control, but she loves him.
She's almost his Jiminy Cricket.
Yeah.
Conscience, basically, isn't she? If it wasn't like a historically accurate film, you'd assume she was like a figment of his imagination almost. A bit like Fight Clubby type thing.
Yeah,
where she's in his head and you keep telling him, oh, Caligula, chill out, lad. Stop killing everyone.
Yeah.
Don't need to chop their heads off. Leave them.
I have to admit, speaking of chopping people's heads off, that big, giant red wall. So we've got these guys that are like basically, they're buried up to their head in sand, and then you've got people at either side of this big kind of proscenium.
Like a gladiator.
Yeah, basically, and they're throwing like rotten fruit in there and onions and all sorts of these.
Like a coconut shy.
Yeah, these guys that are just have their heads, and not only that, which is bad enough. You've got this giant red wall coming towards them with these cyclical blades that are just spinning around, and eventually, as the wall moves forward, cut their head off, just like that.
Great cheers from the audience.
Yeah, whoa! But that
because, because the guy who kills Tiberius is buried, isn't he?
Macro, I think he was called. Yeah, Macro.
Yeah, he's one of he's the main victim, isn't he? He's like that. Oh, yeah, bastard, and then his head goes flying off.
Yeah, because Macro kills Tiberius, and he's he's proving his worth to Caligula. Like, I believe in you. You are the next Caesar, and he like puts his hand in the fire and stuff, trying to get that kind of across. But then he's like that, like everyone, like he's really worried about people knowing, that he killed or had Tiberius killed. So is it Gemellus, the young boy?
Gemellus, yeah.
Young relative. He tries to has him killed and stuff.
Gemellus is the one who had taken the antidote to the poison before the party.
That's right.
And he was like, oh, you're treasonous. Take him away.
But
Proculus.
Yeah, Proculus.
The wedding of Proculus is like where it all starts going wrong for old poor old Proculus because he gets his Proculus proculated. I can tell you.
Yeah. So this is something that really happened in his story. Like we said, this is fairly historically accurate. This film, as mad, batshit crazy as it is, it is, as many time jumps as it makes. Caligula would often go to a wedding and he would take the virginity of the wife or the bride and, against her will pretty much. And which is something we see in this film as well. He takes the wife and the husband and makes the husband watch as well. And I think is
she a virgin? And he's basically having a good look.
Yeah, he's having a good look. And then is there some?
He says to him, "Are you a virgin?"
Yeah, I think there's some blood shown after he's raped her. And then he's like, "Oh, are you a virgin?" Now, apparently, the original shooting script was called for Malcolm McDowell to also rape Proculus. However, Malcolm McDowell said, "I'm not going to do that." So he suggested probably something that's probably worse, I'd say.
Yes.
Probably worse.
Tonally.
But, I mean, it's all bad. Don't get me wrong. It's all bad. It's never... none of this stuff is good. But he decides to fist him.
He decides to go full British Bake Off, make a huge cake of his hand. He just dips his hand into what can only be described as lard or cake, doesn't he? Yeah. Put a bit of lube.
Yeah,
just go splotch. With his, and the thing is, he's got his ring on the hand as well.
Oh, yeah.
Like senatorial ring thing, so it's like, yeah.
And like when he's pulling his hand out, you can see a significant amount of brown on his hand as well. It's like, oh, it's prep. It's yeah. And he even puts a little flower on the top.
Yeah, he puts a flower up his ass.
He puts a flower in his bum. In his bum.
Beautiful. Beautiful metaphor.
Jesus Christ! But
But then later on in the film, like Proculus, even after that, is still like a loyal soldier. But at the end, they basically string him up, kill him slowly, cut his penis off. It doesn't end well for Proculus.
So, yeah, they cut his penis off, and then they cut the penis off, feed that to the dogs, and then send the balls to his wife.
As you do, Nice.
Lovely fella.
That's the thing as well. Again, those elaborate sets. There's a couple of times where it's like, do you remember when the Castle Grayskull toy?
Yeah.
It was kind of like too small for the figure toys that came with it. That's what some of the sets feel like. It's like they kind of seem like a weird size for what's going on in this. But it was almost like it was trying to do a forced perspective in some places, but just they couldn't be bothered, so they just went, sorry, it just looks weird. It's definitely a trippy film, isn't it? From that point of view.
Yeah, it's very bizarre to look at, because again, it looks like those kind of 60s epics, those kind of sand and sandals kind of gladiatorial.
It's almost like watching a theatre show, isn't it? Like a film theatre performance when you just get like one big set and like they're moving the camera around on it.
Especially those opening scenes with Peter O'Toole and Malcolm McDowell. That feels like a stage. Like it is a stage, clearly, but it does have that feel. And again, you've got two very kind of old school Shakespearean actors kind of plying their trade. I heard, like, from what I've read, Peter O'Toole was fairly difficult, like on set as well. Like he made fun of Tinto Brass, insulted Tinto Brass and his filmmaking and style. He insulted the producer, Bob Guccione, made fun of the magazine, talking about it being trash and stuff. And, that's
How to Win Friends and Influence People was his favorite book.
Clearly. I mean, I still, like, the good thing about this film is that these actors did continue on. Their careers didn't just die after this film. And people still talk about it to this day. I personally, I went in expecting stuff, from this film, and from what I've heard and what's been discussed and how long it is and, all the history behind it. But I was still fairly shocked by some of the stuff I saw, like some of the stuff we've already mentioned. Like, I was still like, they're pretty full on. But like you said, very unsexy. They don't really know what they're doing.
The orgy scene just goes from one. It's like, and there's a constant voiceover, like Malcolm McDowell's voice in it. And you don't really know whether that was just an overdub or whether this was actually how it was filmed and set out originally because of the way it's been edited and cut together. But that orgy scene where it's just like, you've got somebody with an eel, someone pleasuring themselves with an eel. You've got like somebody riding a bike, which is just basically a rotating load of like false tongues. Away.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, you've got people on swings with, massive big phalluses sticking out of walls and they're slamming into them. And it's just utter, any mad sex thing you can think of is happening. There's horses in the background. I'm not saying anything.
Yeah,
you're assuming there's stuff going on there.
Well, I mean,
there's bulls and all that.
Yeah, I mean, Caligula does end up in bed with his horse, and not only that, mistakes the horse for his sister during a fever. So, who he was very intimate with.
Indeed.
So,
but you see him hugging the horse, and then he starts like. You don't, and then he starts vomiting, and it's whether you're meant to surmise from that he's been doing something with the horse or not either. It's just it's very strange.
Yeah, I get.
He's saying to us, he's calling it Drusilla, isn't he? Because he just thinks it's there, basically.
Yeah, and this is like, I miss you. I'm not sure. Was she dead at that point, or it was?
Yeah, she died.
I think she died
towards the very end of the film, isn't it? Really, this is as he's kind of like, as he's got that fever thing, he's really losing it, isn't he?
Yeah, he's kind of. It's interesting. I quite like when he goes out as a beggar, like after Drusilla's died in his depression. He kind of goes out and he's going on the streets of Rome. Oh, I forgot to mention this. As well with Proculus. Once he gets murdered. He cuts his penis off and his balls off. I forgot to mention that two lesbians then proceed to piss on him for real. Right. For real, they piss on him and then rub the blood that is on Proculus on their vaginas. So yeah, that's a thing that happened as well.
Yeah, it's a definite Sunday afternoon family film.
Absolutely.
Sure.
But yeah, you see Caligula, you kind of, and then they're doing a play. There's a street play, a street performance of his life, and someone's playing Drusilla, and she's, again, another like good scene, like a decent, scene. And there's, because I think there's probably on the cutting room floor, I think there's a lot more stuff where it's like you're sympathetic of Caligula, and that you get what he's going through. I think this is one of those that was kept in because he starts smashing the stage. He's like, "No, you can't do this," and she's like, "I am Drusilla. Make love to me, Caligula." Like the worst kind of. She's doing the worst bit of acting you've ever seen.
And then there's the magician in like the cells bit doing the
God,
vanishing coin thing, and then he makes his ring disappear, and then the magician like realizes it's him because he sees the ring, and he goes, "Oh," and they all start bowing down to him, and then
doesn't he do the
nothing now?
Doesn't he do the coin thing with that unconscious woman's vagina? Does that magic trick?
Yes.
Yeah.
So basically, Caligula then sees him doing that, and then Caligula vanishes his ring and makes it appear from his balls.
Yes, that's it.
as you do. I know I used to do that as a magician all the time.
I mean, and you've got the skills. You've got the skills to pull those coins out of any which place you want. You know.
Yeah.
It's not behind balls. It's not behind your ear. It's behind one of your lips. There we go. Yeah.
Shazam!
Shazam! Magic! Alakazam! Yeah. Wow. I want to talk about Caligula's invasion of Britain.
Oh yeah. It's I think it's military might showing at its finest.
Very successful campaign, I think, as well. Like purely, I know on set.
Where is Britain, Caligula? Oh, it's over there. Oh, is it? Okay.
Okay, and how are we going to conquer it? With my soldiers, and his soldiers bare arse nude, like all of these, and they
got shields though.
Yeah, they got shields, they got spears, they got all the gear, just no clothes on, and they just kind of frolic into the water, and that's it.
Go and kill those papyrus. That's what he gets. He gets to kill all the papyrus, doesn't he?
That's right. And
so basically, he says the papyrus is Britain. Go and kill all the papyrus. That's right. You can see all the soldiers are looking at each other, going, "What the fuck is this fella talking about?"
And then he brings it back, doesn't he? And that's the big thing, because he kind of comes back out of his depression. He's like, and he hires that giant guy as well. He's not a giant at all because he's shorter than Caligula, in the film. So I don't know why they call him the giant. But he's kind of like, yes, my next big thing is when I conquer Britain, or is it I think you might do. Again, my memory of this film. It's 2.5 hours, and it's pretty choppy as it is. So wherever this falls in the plot, it just falls. But it's either
and you almost remember it in the order it should be in, even though it wasn't in that order.
I agreed. It makes more sense for your brain to remember it in the incorrect order than the actual correct order of the film. Thank you, Mr. Guccione, for confusing us. Yeah, it's apparently on set as well during that scene. Malcolm McDowell, as an actor, you ask questions and you question some of the artistic choices. And he asked Tinto Brass. He said, "If we're invading, Britain, England, what have you, why have none of our soldiers got armor on?" And he's like, Tinto Brass was like, "Just cock and arse." That was his answer. That was his creative opinion on that particular.
That's all we need. A cock and arse. That scene is to describe that scene is essentially like Caligula sat on like a throne, looking out onto like Lake Windermere, basically just like a lake where you can see the other side of the lake, and he's going, "That's Britain there. Go and kill it." He's just go and kill the papyrus. It's like, is
that again? Is that the bit where he's got the seashell and he's just like,
he's like his phone. It's like a military phone, isn't it? He's going, "Oh yes, okay. I've been told that they're over there." "But where is Britain, sire?" "There it is." And he's just pointing basically over to the other side of this lake.
And then he gives it over to the giant, and he's like, "Yeah, I can hear it too." So fucking weird. Like,
it's very, very weird.
It's the fucking weird.
And yet you just watch it and go, "Yeah, fair enough."
Yeah, again, it's not a boring film. It's definitely not a boring film. I'm glad for that, being that the version that we both watched was the 2.5 hour version. I'm glad it wasn't boring. There was never a point where I was like, and I've watched some boring films on this podcast and in real life that were much more boring than this. This was entertaining, but I did expect a bit more kind of violence and brutality and torture and that sort of thing, but it seems to more skew on the kind of sexual side of Caligula's kind of
the debauched nature of what he was, wasn't it? It's all about the like having the horse and the odd sex stuff going on. But where there is blood, it is very, very red paint blood.
Yeah,
it's good old fashioned Italian gore blood.
Yeah, you can definitely tell. It's not like the sticky kind of stuff you get in the 80s and that, because this was just 1979, I think. This was
79, I think.
Yeah, so just kind of before they started to kind of get like, this is how we do blood now. Before the Tom Savini days and that sort of stuff. But yeah, I don't even know what to kind of say about this. I think, would you recommend it to people? Do you think?
I mean, not like me nan or anything, but yeah. I think generally it's one of those films, isn't it, where it's kind of like you want to say you've seen it, and I think it's actually a good. Unfortunately, it's one of those films where I would like to watch it, but as soon as you say you're going to watch it, people who've never even seen it know of it being basically a porn. So you say, "Oh, I'm going to watch Caligula." Everyone's going, "Oh, you're good, you perv." But it's like it's actually a good film. Do you know what I mean? And as I say, it's spoiled by the fact that it's got this porn thing about it, where it's basically what was it called? An erotic historical drama. It kind of like ruins the fact that you could actually just watch it as a half decent film. It's almost like they need to bring a cutout where there's none of that in it. They just give you the film. I mean, it'd be, as I say, 5 minutes long, but
the reason I chose this was because a comment your wife made was that every time you walk into a film, she walks into you watching a film for the podcast. It always ends up someone with their bare breasts out, and she always
it's always the scene, and she'll always go, "You watching porn again?"
So I thought, why not actually make you watch actual porn?
Yeah, I'm so glad you did. I mean, it may interest you to know, like I did have it in my collection though, which says a lot of.
There you go.
What can I say? But yeah, it deserves its notoriety. If you
do you think it's like? Do you think it should be in the kind of the archives for culturally significant films or anything like that?
Well, I think it is. I think it is. It's culturally significant. I mean, it is actually a good film. It's hard to explain it being a good film, but being completely deranged at the same time.
It's a good film and a bad porno, is what it is, I think.
Yes. It's one of those films as well, as a novelty. I want to see how it should have been, as you said before. If they did get round to doing the definitive cut of it, where it's like all in the proper order, whichever writer director it was, but put it in the actual order instead of letting Guccione's take all the Guccione crap out of it and put it in the order it should have been. I think it'd be a decent oddity to watch.
Yeah.
It's not. It's, as you say, it's not boring. There's no terrible acting in it in any part. The worst acting is some of the porn actors, obviously, because it was like Penthouse playmates or whatever, the Penthouse pals or something they call them. I'll do the girls and that. You can tell it was that kind of just porn actors, porn extras in the background. And it's like they've got like some disabled people with like withered legs, as you said before, about the hopping bit, crawl, and he's telling people what to do. He's got like almost like all the freaks, if you will, in the middle, like hopping about on one leg for him, and the three-faced woman's hugging the big bell and all that kind of stuff. And it's that weirdness.
Yeah, it's a weird kind of. But again, like that's part of his history and part of his character, and I think they do represent. From what I know of the real Caligula and the videos I've watched on the history of Caligula, it's not, like we said, it's not far off. So it's it's fairly accurate. It's bizarre and weird, and again, like you can't. Truth is stranger than fiction, isn't it? So, and I think his truth is very, very strange.
But it's like as you were saying before, your nan came into watching that and said, when you were watching something, I said, "This is the last days of Rome," because that is known as. That's how mad Rome was, just mad, debauched. Everyone was. You don't have to go to Pompeii, and it's like got the little penises drawn in the roads to show where all the brothels were and all that stuff. That's actually in the cart wheels on the floor. It's like stone penises so everyone knew where the brothels were. So that's the kind of place it was. the Roman Empire was,
Yeah, it's almost a bit kind of like paganistic with all the phalluses and all the penises and like every which way you look. If it's not a real penis, it's a fake penis. You can't move
massive
the
70-foot tall penis shapes.
You got Malcolm McDowell taking a real piss in the corner.
It is very surreal. Like I say, it's almost Flash Gordon like, and it's surreal.
Yeah, it's a grand epic. The sets are amazing. Like, just to look at the sets, and there is this almost like dreamlike feel to the film. Like, there's a dreamlike, I don't know, this unusual kind of, I don't know, texture to it. The kind of
it's shot on. It's like film, isn't it? Anyway, it's sort of grainy, but it's like misty. It's that misty, murky feel to it.
Almost like a Tony Scott film or something. It's like
until you go to the porn bits and it's shot totally different lighting and everything.
Yeah, of course. And like the shot again, like years after as well. It's not even like drastically, close together. There's a bit where like Caligula kind of there's this big like I can't remember what the line was, but I think it's about something, and it cuts immediately to this weird kind of stone face that looks really shocked. It's kind of like got this like ooh face.
Yeah. Because he talks through that, doesn't he, to his sister?
Yeah, and then he goes behind it, and there's two guys. Obviously this is filmed. It's cut totally together. It's really haphazard. And he's like, "Hey, you can't be doing that behind there." And it's just two guys sucking each other off for real. And obviously they just run away. And I was like, "What are they doing there? Why are they there? Why are they in the nobody's invited them? They're basically in the royal bedroom."
There's the sex scene with Helen Mirren and his sister, and there's two lesbians behind the mouth watching. So basically, Helen and him and the sister are having a little threesome thing, soft, normal, simulated sex thing, and then in the background is the hardcore lesbian porn going on. They intersperse between the two, and like that's obviously I'm assuming that's one of the scenes that was like created later for the film.
Oh, definitely.
These two girls are behind there watching them three, and then go, "Ooh, let's have a go." So away they go.
Let's have a nibble.
Yeah, literally.
Oh gosh, I read somewhere, I don't know how true this is, I can't find anything else to substantiate this claim, but apparently the birth of Caligula's daughter was interspersed with real pregnant people giving birth, pregnant women giving birth, apparently. But you bet like all you see is her kind of strung up, and then there's a crowning of a child head coming out, but that's kind of
one of the many cuts.
Yeah, maybe. There is, because she's wearing this gold mask, and you see her briefly without the mask on, but then most of the shots, the mask is over her face. But I don't know how. I don't think it would have been that good.
I don't think it'd been allowed, would it?
Yeah, even back then, I'm thinking stringing a pregnant woman up who is in labour, you're stringing her up and filming her give birth. There's a lot of things
might have had something to say there.
Yeah, probably. I think as far as this film goes, I think that might have been just a little too far.
That might have been its limit.
Yeah, I mean, there's implied paedophilia, there's implied bestiality, like we've said. It's. I'm glad they don't show that stuff, because somebody told me that they may show some paedophilia scenes, and I'm like, hope not. Luckily, they didn't, as far as I'm aware. To be honest, there's so much being thrown at you in this film. There's stuff I've missed. I forgot about like you were saying, the bike with all the tongues on it.
Yeah.
There's so much.
And the eel lady riding with the big eel.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
In the back, but as I say, it's like the image is like I don't know how to describe it, a plateau of filth, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like a multi-story car park full of people doing all kinds of mad shit everywhere you look. That's essentially, it's like
the smorgasbord of filth.
It's like, what was that? Celebrity Squares, but extreme Celebrity Squares, and just all kinds of mad shit going on in every square in the corner. and that's it, and they're like walking up and down steps like Mario. And Donkey Kong's at the top with a huge cock. That's kind of how it is, isn't it? They're the little the original Mario Hammerman dude. And like it's just cocks. Instead of flaming barrels, it's just massive cocks and spinning wheels of tongue and stuff.
I mean, that's kind of what I felt like in this film. I just had to dodge all the penises constantly coming at me. It's like 3D. Whoa.
There is a whole lot of penis.
Whole lot of penis. Again, if you it's this weird middle ground of being.
I think that was on the poster, wasn't it? Whole lot of penis. That was
whole
the tagline.
That's the song. Whole lot of penis. But again, like I think back in the day, obviously, now this is still banned in several countries, including Belarus. It was released in Russia in '93, uncut, and then I think we got it in 2005, and I think Australia got it in 2008, fully uncut. I think it's something like that, or the other way around. We might have got it in 2008, and then they got it in 2005. So it's still taken a while to, and again, we still don't have effectively the final cut of the film. Like, it's still being put together, it's being remastered. Luckily, apparently they found a lot of the B-roll, a lot of the footage in this kind of warehouse.
The mad thing about it is with this film is you could well expect the uncut version to just be all the penises have still got the foreskins. That's
because that's inaccurate, isn't it? Because in Rome they would have been fully.
I wonder how long it would take to check them all.
There we go.
Have a look to make sure they all are 1, 2, 3, 4.
It reminds me of that Friends episode where they're trying to make Joey a foreskin for his audition. Just like, I want to be in Caligula so much. Quick, fashion this bit of sausage meat around it. There you go.
It is a mad film.
Mental. But yeah, I do kind of recommend it in a weird way, in kind of like this kind of time capsule bubble before we had like, because again, this is I guess this was released in cinemas, to a degree. Obviously there was various cuts made. Especially in the UK, there's some severe cuts made. Like we said, there's 15, 20 different versions of this film. I don't know if we'll ever get the full version. Who knows? Maybe we will. Fingers crossed. I would watch it, I think.
Yeah, if you can get a copy of it and get to watch it. It's definitely worth the watch. If you can get past the stigma of, you're watching Caligula, perv. But
to be fair though, there's a lot of European films that do feature, like mainstream theatrical films that do feature, unsimulated sex.
I'd actually say there's been more uncomfortable sex scenes in films recently. Like the Blue is the Warmest Colour. The sex scenes in that are so like strung out, and obviously there's a bit of trouble from the actresses involved afterwards and stuff. But I think they're tonally and cringily worse than anything in Caligula.
Oh yeah,
that makes sense.
No, I get what you mean. I think there are. It's. I think the love scenes that are unsimulated are better. The simulated sex would be the fake stuff, acting. The unsimulated stuff is shit. It's just not even a good porno. It's not sexy. It's just, like you said, it looks like they've never seen a penis that large before. And to be fair, I don't think I'd know what to do with it, Dan.
Large and smooth.
I mean, they're the best looking penises I've seen in a long time, and not that I go around looking for them, but there you go. They were fantastic looking penises. Impressive. I'm impressed. Coming from a straight man, that's an unusual statement, I'm sure, but they're all right. They look good. They look good on screen. But yeah, it's weird. I think people should watch it, because I think even there's some good films out there that do have unsimulated sex in, like real sex. The actors have real sex. Didn't Shia LaBeouf do that Nymphomaniac film, and he actually had sex with the other actor?
Yeah, there's a few, and there's 9 songs.
9 songs, yeah.
That's basically nine concerts, 9 sex scenes.
Yeah.
You've got things like The Perfect Picture, I think, is unsimulated sex stuff. There's quite a few. I mean, like the bunny. What's that one?
Oh, is it like Brown Bunny or something?
Brown Bunny or whatever, which is obviously quite synonymous with people doing things they didn't want to do.
Yeah. I'd be interested to see like how big a list there is of kind of theatrical films that were released with unsimulated sex. Like I'm kind of interested. I don't think I'm going to go, you know, unless I hear some amazing things about them. I don't know if I'm going to go out and find them. And
I think the difference with this film is rather than it being like unsimulated sex in the film, it's these added porn basically into what was already
because in those other films
simulated sex bits.
Because of those other films, it's actually just actors having sex, like
and parts of the story as well.
Yeah, exactly, and they're performing. You know, they're being their characters while having that sex and performing it in a certain way, which is, you know, as a former actor or part-time actor myself, I'm not sure if I could do that personally, but it's quite an extreme thing to ask an actor, I think. And there's certain things that directors have asked actors to do in the past that are extreme. Like you've just said, there's a lot of kind of controversy about some of those films. And there's controversy about this film as well, like Guccione and some other stuff.
One of the actresses sued, got like $4 million in damages afterwards, didn't he? Because it basically destroyed I think she was one of the ones in that aforementioned lesbian scene behind the mouth. And I think she sued them because it knackered their career.
Yeah, I think she may have possibly been. She claims to have been assaulted, and she won the case. So there you go. But it's interesting to see like the advent of like internet porn now. It's like Caligula is nothing really compared to what you would find on the internet. Like this is like the stuff you can find on the internet is, far more disturbing and arguably less sexy than Caligula, even though this isn't very sexy already.
There's probably stuff on TikTok now that's worse than this.
Arguably, yeah. It's so, it's interesting to see because I think that's probably why it was so popular, because it was marketed as, a theatrical film with just, copulation all over the place. We looked at society and we looked at the shunting, and even the shunting was probably arguably sexier than some of the.
I know it is weird, isn't it? It is really
people melting into each other.
That's why people need to watch this film is to see that we're not literally just saying it's not sexy at all to try and sound like we didn't like it. It's literally it's just not. You could kind of watch it with your family, not that you would, and not be embarrassed to like, oh, you're not going to get titillated kind of thing by it. It's just not. It's quite horrendous, really.
It's not good. It's not sexy, and it's not. It's so weird. It's such a weird movie. Like I think it's hard to like. I know we've tried to talk about it and explain it. I don't think we've probably done the best job. We're kind of like, do you remember that weird bit? Do you remember that weird bit? Do you remember that weird bit? But
it's because it's so disjointed, though, isn't it? As a film, you can't really. It's not like you can say the plot is Caligula wants to be in the Senate, but he's not allowed to be. So he's got to fight for his position, and he's got to get rid of these people and that. It's just literally mad bastard at the beginning, gets a bit madder, and then goes totally batshit at the end and gets killed.
Do you think George Lucas was inspired by Caligula to write his prequel trilogy?
I think he was suffering from the same mental illness as Caligula was me to write his prequel trilogy.
And he was like, I am the Senate.
Yes, I am. Build me a lift to the gods, for I am a god.
It's treason, then. That's a very Caligula line.
Is Caligula's death scene where he goes and gets betrayed and
spoilers, he dies.
Everyone hates him that much that basically once he's been killed, he says, "What's the password?" And he says, "Scrotum." He goes, "So be it then," and just takes him out with a sword. And then Helen Mirren screams and runs up and he kills her. And then all the soldiers come in with the spears and just start having a good old stab at him because they just want to make sure he's dead.
You missed the most brutal bit is that his daughter gets her head gets thrown into these marble steps and her head basically just kind of explodes with blood.
That's the closest thing to you mentioned the paedophilia thing before. back then, you didn't really ever see kids getting hurt in films, or you know what I mean. It was that, I think I mentioned this before. I don't know whether there was a law against it or whatever, but you never saw kids in horror films getting killed. It was always like off screen or whatever. So when you did see anything like that, it was like, and it's literally is this cute little kid who's his son, but it's actually his daughter, just gets taken off the shoulders of the woman looking after her and just smashed against the marble steps. And then at the end, you see them all lying there dead, and it pauses on his dead face for ages.
They just chuck him down. They just chuck him down the stairs. I do like that bit where he's like,
the blood's running down the stairs.
Yeah,
really.
I can't remember that soldier's name, but it's something like Carrada or something like that. And he's like, I live. You know, because he believes he's immortal and he's a god, and he's like, you can't kill me. You know.
Okay, we'll have a good go.
Yeah. I do love that. It's proper Malcolm McDowell, isn't it? Scrotum, you know.
Yeah, with his thumbs up as well. He puts thumbs up and scrotum,
yeah.
And he goes, "So be it," and just does him in.
It's very like it's a proper like, you know, Jason Machete kill as well, because he goes,
yeah,
proper swings at his, you know, his neck.
But then it just takes Helen Mirren out, stabs her in the gut.
Yeah.
And then, as you say, just takes the daughter out in like the most horrendous way possible. It's just literally like throws her down like a sack.
Clearly a doll, but it's still pretty horrific because it's just like, oh, it's
like
awful.
A sack of shit.
Sack of shit. Yeah, Caligula. What else can we say about Caligula we haven't already said? Oh,
it's got a beautiful soundtrack.
It does. Yeah.
As I said before, Bruno Nicolai did the music, and it's got you know, some of the classical tunes in it that you know and love already. Put it now with a porno background. It's just delightful.
But part of me wishes though, like when they transferred to the porn scenes, that they had like a sax playing or like a bang chicka bow bow.
Yeah, so you knew. So you knew which bits which were added later.
And, you know, and I've still got Malcolm McDowell going, I am Rome, Caligula is a god, you know, all the while that soundtrack is playing. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Or at least, yeah. Or just have like, as it cuts, you just hear, oh, yeah. Ooh, baby.
Just like a little like a little 3-second warning or something. Just like, here comes the porn.
Before every scene of porn scene, it was just like, ooh, baby.
Cover your grandmother's eyes because the porn is coming. Quick. I kind of do want to watch the PG version of it just to see what it's like, but I imagine it's not very good.
I mean, one of the funniest bits of it as well is the little things you notice is that Longinus is, I think that's the name of something that they do in the film, isn't it? But he's got this weird head shape, but he's on that boat. He's on the big the love ship kind of thing, and he just basically spits his wine into his face from through his teeth. He like squirts something through his teeth at Longinus, and it gets him in the eye. And I'm like, that's just a random thing in the whole film.
I think there's clearly stuff that Malcolm McDowell is just doing. Like he's just like I think the flower thing
get away with this.
The flower thing in the bum. I think he's like, yeah, I'm gonna fucking do this. Like it's just proper random. But yeah, speaking of fluids, I remembered that I think is it Macro's wife, who's kind of like almost like a priestess almost. She's kind of got she's got the dark hair and the dark dress, and
she just lies on her bed.
Yeah, mostly. But I remember during one of her scenes, for some reason, there's 3 or 4 men just jizzing into a bowl, just jizzing directly into a bowl. I imagine it's going on her skin to like preserve
oil of Ulay.
Yeah, but I was just like, it's just 3 guys jizzing into a bowl. What am I watching here? Like it's not even them having sex. They're just jacking off into a bowl.
Yeah, I bet you never even thought, I've made Dan watch this as well.
I can't believe I made myself watch it, let alone anybody else.
You watched it first. I was like, yeah, okay, he's watching.
Because you said you're going to watch the PG version, or not the PG version, but the bit without the porn, that version.
I think there's a 90-minute version, isn't there?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, I think I'm going to try and track down that version. I'd watch it again, but as I say, 2 hours 40 or whatever it is slightly long, even though it doesn't really feel it.
No, like I said, again,
it clips along. It clips along at quite a decent rate, like, doesn't it?
yeah, I don't know if that's maybe the editing or the brevity of the editing, or
Yeah, well, if you think about the beginning, even before the opening credits are finished, you're 6 minutes into the film.
true.
So they could probably cut out a load of crap like that, and
You got to hear the dun, 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 dun,
there's some really that's the Dance of the Knights from Romeo and Juliet.
Mm.
It's very there's some nice classical stuff in there.
It fits though. It does, like, it's not like totally. It fits the theming of the film. It fits that this is grand, it's epic, and it's somewhat sinister, and the things to come are somewhat disturbing. I think that fits in with that kind of, that music is quite fitting for it as an opening. Yeah, it's a mad bastard of a film.
That is quite correct. It is one for the collection, for the connoisseur of bizarre.
One for the ages.
It's one if like Arrow brought out a definitive edition Blu-ray box set, I'd buy it.
Yeah,
it's one of them.
I think I would too, because again, like we said, there's history to it. There's controversy. Like I'm always up for films that kind of challenge me. Like recently, I watched a film called Who Can Kill a Child, which opens with 7 or 8 minutes worth of documentary footage of children that are either mutilated, dying, and/or dead from many historical events. So Auschwitz, Vietnam, various other things. It's got fuck all to do with the film. The film is actually very good. With those first 7 or 8 minutes, I did watch them, but they're fucking hard watch. But if anybody watches Who Can Kill a Child, skip those 7 or 8 minutes, because it doesn't really add anything. It's just tragic shit. I get what he's trying to say.
It's to fuck your head up straight away.
Yeah, I get what he's trying to say, because it's saying that, like, war and stuff, always the children suffer the most, and then basically these children all of a sudden go mad and start killing the inhabitants of an island, and these British tourists kind of turn up and they become victim to it. It's a great film. It's full of tension. It's almost like Hitchcock's The Birds, but with kids.
I've never heard of it. I'm intrigued now.
It is really good. I bought it on. I had to buy it because I couldn't find a copy anywhere else. I had to buy it on iTunes for like $5, but it was worth it because it actually is an excellent Spanish horror film. Again, skip the first 7 or 8 minutes unless you want to watch it. But that film did, challenge me, and this film challenged me in a different way. I
think that's as we touched on before. I think European horror and European films often did touch on subjects that maybe the Hollywood and British films didn't. Like that kind of subject where kids doing mad shit.
Yeah,
you didn't really see that anywhere else. But I think Europeans were a bit more open to it.
Yeah, well, I think they've always have been a bit more open to kind of sexuality and violence, a bit more explicit. And so many other cultures. I think still even to this day, I think we're still a little Victorian in our views. Yeah, I think with England, it's still like, we no sex, please. We're English, that sort of thing.
Yes,
So I think there is part of that. But again, like it's there's a lot of those Italian films, unfortunately, like stuff like what you've discussed already has occurred, horrible stuff like that. There's there's animal torture and animals getting killed as well in some of those. It's like lots of other kind of films, like Cockfighter was a film about cockfighting that had real cockfighting in it, and is still not available in the UK because of animal cruelty laws and stuff. There's a lot of films out there that do challenge you, and I think this would challenge the most. Like even I was shocked, and I knew exactly what I was going in for. I was still shocked by it. So this film still has power, even this many years after it was released. There's still something to it. I do recommend watching it, even just as a kind of history lesson. I think it's good to kind of know how things have come on and where we are with, censorship and the history of it is arguably more fascinating than the film. But I still don't think the film is awful.
I think it's one of those films you could sit with your phone ready and hear a name and have a look, Google the name, see what the actual history was, and go, actually, it's quite accurate then, isn't it?
Yeah, I would if you watch it, I would go on YouTube straight after, like I did, and go, I wonder how much of this was real, and you'll realize most of it, almost entirely, all of this was real. Like, I'm not sure if it happened to the exact characters and stuff. Obviously, it's still an adaptation. It's not even an adaptation; it's an adaptation of an adaptation, of the script and stuff. So, who knows? Who knows?
I wouldn't mind getting hold of the soundtrack as well. That's really, really good.
I think so too. Is there anything else you'd like to say about Caligula before we come to an end?
I can't think of anything that stood out particularly.
Apart from the penis.
Oh, there is some impressive penis.
Impressive penis.
There's quite a lot of decent bushage as well. So
yeah,
you can tell the
70s.
That's all I'm saying. Yeah.
Absolutely.
If you haven't got it in your collection, or you've been like, you've heard of it and never thought, I don't know, I'd track it down, give it a watch.
Yeah,
whatever version you can get hold of.
Yeah, whichever version you are most comfortable with. There's some people who won't watch the full version, but me and Dan have, for everyone's viewing pleasure, listening pleasure, we watched it, so nobody else has to. This is definitely probably one of the more infamous films I've done, because I do like to tackle infamous, obscure, and cult. I think this is definitely falls in that category. But yeah, no, it's been.
And I think some people might watch it and go, don't know what all the fuss is about.
Yeah, like we said,
seen worse on Pornhub.
Yeah, nowadays when you've got your Brazilian fart porn, this is pretty tame, in comparison.
Dan starts Googling Brazilian fart porn.
Yes, it's definitely it's a fascinating film in its own right. Whichever way you cut it, the history, the film itself, what came after, and what has, the world has changed. Arguably, Caligula changed the landscape of cinema. You could argue. Who knew of this giant epic? And I actually haven't seen many of these epics that people mention. So this is probably one of the only ones I've seen.
Like Ben-Hur and stuff.
Ben-Hur, I haven't seen those, but I've seen Caligula, and that's something.
Arguably better.
Arguably, definitely. I'm sure it is. I'm definite. Positive, probably better. Anyway, Dan, where can people find you and the wonderful things you do on the social medias?
Oh, good question. I've forgotten myself. It's been a while. You can find me on @DansPhoto on Instagram and @Dan Burgess Photo on Facebook. Mainly on Instagram these days, to be honest. Yeah. And @DansPhoto1 on the Twitter. The Twitter's
very good. Well, I've been really enjoying your photos every day. You're doing a photo every day, like a photo edit thing every day, and I love all of them. So, like, every word you pick, I'm like, what is he going to do with this word? And like, you never go for like the obvious thing. You always go for something really unique, or a unique spin on that word, or like the old version of that word, or something like that. So I really enjoy
something very odd. It was one of those things where obviously we're all in lockdown. I wanted to carry on taking photos because I thought I can't go out and take photos of other people. So it's kind of me normally just sat on my couch. But I put a 365 word random word generator at the beginning of the year. So I've got 365 words, one for every day. I look at the word of that day and away I go. Try and come up with something as weird as I can.
Well, they are no weirder than Caligula, I will say that.
Yeah, there's no penises been in any of it yet.
No.
I don't think there will be.
Well, I mean, we'll have to see what is your 365th word.
365th word's Caligula. There's going to be problems.
Yes, I want to see that one. Well, I mean, there's a lot of good images you could pull from the film, and lots of ideas. So I would love to see that. But there we are. So you can find me on Facebook @SecretBores, Twitter it's @Dan_Bores, and Instagram it's SpiderDanSecretBores. And don't forget to use the hashtag #PrepareForPrattle. And for everything else you need to know about the podcast, swing over to SpiderDanandTheSecretBores.com on the World Wide Web to email me, read reviews, and learn how you can support the podcast. Speaking of supporting the podcast, I'd like to thank my patrons on Patreon. I am Jack's Musings, Paul Meller, Max Byrne, Tony Farina, and Scott Hodgson for their continuing donations. It is very much appreciated and helps Prattle World keep on turning. So thank you very much, guys, and please give me all your money. Please keep giving me the monies.
Legends.
Absolute legends. That is right, Dan. So yes, that is it. Well, I mean, that was Caligula, as best as we could describe it. Without, you kind of have to see it. I think that's the one.
Yeah.
I think that's the main thing. You kind of have to see it. Whatever form you want to watch it in, you kind of have to see it. But that is it.
Can I just ask next time we do a film, it's like something by Disney or something?
You know what, Dan? Dan? I'll let you pick. Whatever you want to do, we'll do it. Yeah. But I thought this was an interesting pick. Something a bit different as well from the usual stuff I do. So I'm glad.
Definitely.
I'm glad you watched it. I'm glad that you watched the hardcore edition as well, because I'm glad I didn't have to suffer alone.
It'll be an interesting new series, this as well. I look forward to listening to the rest.
Oh yes, there's going to be a lot of interesting stuff. I'm basically just going to pick them up at random. I think I'm just going to be like, right, we're going to watch that. Don't know anything about it, and we'll see. Or again, people can bring it to me or whatever, but we'll just see. But
I'm always happy to come back and watch some more weird shit.
Oh, you love it, and I love you for it, Dan. So thank you very much. But okay, that is us signing off. See you later, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.